Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Grind Entrepreneur Network Spotlight. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, host and creator. And I tell you, we have a wonderful guest today. She is none other than Kimberly Holmes Wiggins. She is an award-winning journalist, currently a morning anchor at WBOC TV. She is the founder of, and I want to say She Rides. Is that right?
Still his.
Yeah, still his. Exactly. And so, Kimberly, I just want to say welcome to the Grind Entrepreneur Network.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. You actually are a graduate of Duke University and Columbia University School of Journalism. That is awesome. And that's going to really lead right into our first question. How did you start in broadcast journalism?
Oh, it was a long, winding path. When I actually entered Duke, I wanted to become a pediatric dentist, if you believe it or not. And I had everything planned. I'd even worked in my pediatric dentist office in high school. Like I knew what I was doing. At the end of my freshman year, I didn't quite do so well in my science classes. That didn't deter me, though. I've always been the kind of person where I knew even if it was going to be a difficult path, I could still kind of get back on the right path. But I started to think. I was like, is this really what I want to do? What's going on here? Is there something else my heart might be in a little bit more? And I've always loved telling stories. I'm from Houston. I was born in Houston, Texas, but my dad was transferred. His job transferred him to Saudi Arabia when I was 4. So I actually grew up in the Middle East. And we would come back every summer to visit family. And especially when I was in high school, we moved back to Texas. And so, of course, the questions were, growing up over there. And so I always knew what it was like to tell stories and sort of inform people. And I was like, how do I do this and make a career out of it? And I remembered journalism. So I switched to journalism. I then looked into every internship possible. I looked into the path and what you need to do and sort of just never looked back. And it was great, except for I had the best internships and the best mentors, and I worked on my reel, which is the thing that you use to become a journalist, which is essentially you on camera telling stories. It's your resume on tape. And I thought it was pretty solid, but I sent out at the time, showing my age a little bit, VHS tapes, and I sent out dozens of them, and I didn't get one call back. Dozens over months. And so finally, I got one call back from the news director of a station in Meridian, Mississippi. Super tiny station and tiny market. But I wasn't deterred because my dad is from Meridian. So I figured, it's at least a place that I knew. And the day before my interview, the day before I was set to drive from Texas to Meridian, she called me and said she had been fired. And I would have to wait until a new news director was hired and to see whether he or she still wanted to interview me. So that was terrible. So then I decided, I waited a few more months. I applied to a few more places, still didn't get any bites. Decided to go into what was kind of my second interest, which was politics. I got a job working on a campaign in the DC area. And that's what kind of brought me up here. Fell in love with the area. After the campaign, I ended up working for an education nonprofit doing public relations, and it was great. But it still wasn't what I went to school for. It still wasn't my real love. And so by that point, I had been out of business for years. My tape, which, I thought was decent, but clearly wasn't because it couldn't get me a job years ago, was now even older. And I was like, how do I get back into the business? And so one thing for me and my family, my parents have always stressed the importance of education. And they're like, even when you don't know what to do, getting an education is never something wasted. So I started to look into graduate programs. I, at that point, wanted to be a foreign correspondent. And so I looked into a bunch of foreign policy programs, my top one being Georgetown, applied to a bunch of them, was rejected from all of them, which was horrific. And literally the night I got my last one, which was Georgetown, I had a real come to Jesus moment. I was sitting on my sofa in my apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, and I literally was just sobbing and felt so empty inside. And I just had this conversation with God, like, what do I do at this point? I don't know what to do. And I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach that was go and talk to the dean. So the next day I went, little black girl, demanded a meeting with the dean of Georgetown University. Of course, his secretary and everybody was like, he's busy. He's not going to see you. I said, I'll wait. I waited all day. he finally saw me. And essentially he was like, at this point, the best thing to do would be to enroll in a class next year and then apply for the next year. Georgetown, even one class is not cheap. And so I had to take out student loan for that class, but I did it. And it was great. And I loved my teacher and I really got to know the program. But I decided after taking that class and going through all of that, I didn't want to apply to that program. I wanted to go straight for a journalism program. So I applied to the journalism school's top programs in the country, and I got into my top choice, which was Columbia. Went to Columbia, the hardest year of my life. It's a 10-month program. They squeezed everything into 10 months, and you're in New York. So you were, demanding stories and interviews from the top media makers in the world, and you're a student, so of course they don't want to talk to you. But it was great. It was a great learning experience. And so I did that, and after that, its own share of pitfalls to go through, but I kind of made my way through working behind the scenes, and then slowly kind of finally getting my first on-air job, which was here at WBOC in Maryland. And then I went on to the Fox affiliate in Cincinnati, where I was a weekend anchor and special projects reporter and producer. And then I went to Orlando. All great experiences, learned a lot, worked with great people. But when I was in Orlando at the end of my contract there, I decided I just needed a break. I felt so worn out. And I think especially as a young woman, or even like a woman in this age, you're taught and you're groomed to work so hard and throw yourself so much into your work that sometimes you feel at some point like you're losing yourself. And I've talked to a number of my friends and they've kind of felt the same way. And I was just overwhelmed. And so I talked to my husband and I said, I don't think I can re-sign my contract. I think I just need a second to catch my breath. And we hadn't really planned on it, but him being the amazing guy that he is said, okay, let's do it. I took some time off, and it was for the better because it was the last year and a half I spent with him before he was actually killed in a hit and run. At that point, I had been out of the business about a year and a half. I went home to my parents' house, and it was about another year. I ended up coming back to my station, my first station I worked at here, WBOC on the Eastern Shore. And I was actually given an interview about some of the work I'm doing on legislation, on a hit and run legislation in Florida. And when I was leaving that interview, my old boss asked, what are you doing? I know what's happened. Would you be interested in coming and working as a morning anchor again? We need someone. And I said yes, and it's been a blessing. So sometimes this long, windy, curvy road called life will bring you to the right spots, even though it'll bring you through the wrong ones.
Absolutely. And when I hear all of that, I hear persistence, I hear resiliency, so much, especially from the beginning of all the no's. And as we know, in my coaching, I coach aspiring entrepreneurs. And so that's the one thing that we talk about. There are going to be no's. That is without even saying there are going to be no's, but you have to keep going. And you are a true testament to that.
Thank you.
You spoke about losing your husband in a hit and run, which I'm so, my condolences for that. Was that did that catapult you to creating your organization, Still Rise?
It did. I mean, that's exactly what Still His is all about. It was born out of that pain. And it really happened. It was the summer after my husband was killed. I was back home in my parents' home. And I was sitting there. I was using social media to tweet and post about the investigation at that point. And a Wister, a widow sister, as I like to call her, had reached out to me and just retweeted some things and was sending some encouragement. And she used this hashtag called Still His. And it just really grabbed me and it gave me some comfort. And it was one of those things where a lot of people who find themselves either as a widow or especially as a young widow, it's uncharted territory and people don't know what to say or to do when it comes to grief, which is amazing to me because as long as we've been living, we've been dying. And we still haven't figured out the right way to provide comfort. We still say the wrong things and don't provide real help that's actually helpful. And so when I was talking to her and thinking about things, I was like, I don't know exactly what to do, but my husband loved entrepreneurship. And so I reached out to her and I said, what would you think about doing something with Still His? I don't know what, but doing something. And I know we don't know each other, you live halfway across the country, but what if we do something? And she said yes. We ended up meeting in the middle, which was Knoxville, Tennessee. And we started working on Still His. And so it started off with these t-shirts. They're t-shirts that said Still His on them. And we've kind of expanded since then to include a few other grief tees as well as faith tees. So even those who aren't necessarily affected by widowhood or grief can still support the cause. And the bigger mission is we also send these things called love boxes, which are essentially gift boxes that I love to send to widows or really anyone who's experiencing grief. Because especially when it comes to being widowed, you lose that person who made you special. You lose a person who took you out on date nights and sent you flowers and brought you little trinkets just to say hi and I'm thinking of you. And so the whole idea of the love box is to send someone just a little something to say I'm thinking of you. And so the proceeds from the tees, whether the grief tees or the faith tees or anything on the store, they go to sending love boxes. You can buy a love box for a friend as well, but the proceeds also go to sending a love box to people whose names are nominated on the sites. And so that's just a big part of what it is. And also I've done some blogging through it, and I've also just written a book on what to say when you don't know what to say when a friend has lost someone. And so it really is about creating a more responsible, a more helpful dialogue when it comes to grief.
That is really impactful. And just to know that you reached out, like you said, to a perfect stranger and really created something impactful. And so is there support for individuals who have lost their husband? Do you do like a formal support for that?
So about a year ago, I did start I guess a support group of sorts in my area, and also with the Wister who I started with. She's in Missouri. Now she has since left the organization. It was just a bit much, but I do still have my support group here, and we like to get together over brunches or lunches. I work a crazy schedule, so I can't really do dinner, admittedly, but we've also done a paint night and just provide kind of a girls' night. And it's a time where if you need to cry, you can cry. If you need to talk about that this was a bad week or you reach a certain milestone, there are birthdays, your birthday, his birthday, a kid's birthday. It was just really annoying taking the trash out every day this week. All of those things you can kind of let your hair down and share. And so that has been really great. There are a number of other organizations too. And so I do try to provide a central location for those resources, because clearly I'm in a small town in one part of the country and can't reach everyone. And I have literally heard from people across the world who are happy just to have the tea or want to figure out how to have the t-shirt or to be able just to say something. Because a lot of times when it comes to grief, especially the more time that passes, the grief doesn't end. You learn how to live with it. It just becomes different. It becomes a part of your life. But the sadness still is there. And so a lot of times as time goes on and you seem to be coping, you seem to be better, your friends and family think you are better and we can just move on and act like nothing happened. And that honestly is hurtful and not helpful to the person. And so when they are able to say their loved one's name and they are able to even kind of wear something across their chest that shows what they've gone through and that they are still loved and that, they have been through so much and they don't have to be ashamed of the grief, it's helpful. And so that's what this is all about.
I really love that. I actually know a few people here in the Washington, D.C. area that I would love to connect with you for that support. Because as you say, it doesn't go away. You learn how to cope with it, but it doesn't go away. And so I applaud you for taking your pain and helping someone else. So I just absolutely love that. Thank you. So I want to ask you about anchoring. You are a morning anchor. What is the best part of being a news anchor for you?
The best part is honestly, every day is different. You go there, you don't know the stories you're going to tell. I mean, sometimes if you go into the day and if it's a big press conference or a big press event, you might know kind of what's going on, but you never know exactly what's going to happen. And so it's always fresh and new and exciting. I honestly also really do love the people I work with, which is a huge blessing. That has not always been the case. I mean, you always have something in, your work environment, but I actually do I go to work in the middle of the night, and so that's always difficult. But when I get there, I am surrounded by really positive people, and we have fun. And the news business is stressful, but to be able to navigate it with people who are positive is always really helpful. And the thing for me, I love being that connection between what's happening and the real person at home. And especially when it comes to, let's say, a weather event or something really serious going on, especially in Florida, there was always something terrible going on, unfortunately. But to be able to help people protect themselves and their family really, really was special.
I love that. And so, to the aspiring journalist or news anchor out there, what tips or suggestions or recommendations do you have for someone who is just like you, sending out those reels and not hearing a thing? What suggestions do you have for them?
Well, today they're definitely emailing those reels and not sending VHS tapes like I was. But I mean, you touched on it earlier. It really is persistence. You are going to hear no. You are going to hear people who don't believe in you and your dream. And even when you get your foot in the door, you're still going to hear no, because you're going to be knocking on doors of people who don't want to talk to you. And you have to learn how to not take that personally. I think it's tough. You heard a bit of my story. There was still more no's in there and more heartbreak and hard times. But I mean, there are even times I was a really, really quiet, shy kid. And there were also points when I was a teenager that I talked really, really fast. And so I remember having a conversation with someone I grew up with, who's an adult, who said, "Kim, you cannot be a reporter. This is not going to work." Like, just no. And, other people, when they would say, I wasn't getting my foot in the door for years, literally for years. And they would say, "Try this or try this or try this." And I would say, "I tried that, and that." And I would say, "Finally, Kim, I don't think this is for you then." But I still have this feeling in my gut that I think it is. I just have to keep trying. And so sometimes you have to trust yourself. Sometimes it's not going to be easy. And sometimes you're going to feel crazy because you're going to think, "I tried everything, literally everything." And so it's just figuring out a way to believe in yourself when maybe no one else believes in you. And especially now when I have turned good pieces and I have been able to win some awards and I've been able to, mentor some incredible young people who, I mean, are now national correspondents, which is amazing. They've surpassed what I'm doing in life. And that really, really, to me, proves that sometimes you have to believe in yourself when no one else does.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. And so for Still His and for contact information for those individuals who do want to reach out to you because they, love what you're doing or need the support or want to send a love box, how can they contact and reach you?
The easiest thing would be to head to my website. It's kimberlywiggins.com, or you can shoot me an email at kimberly@stillhis.com.
That's awesome. And are you present on any social media platforms?
Oh, yeah. Got them all. It's part of the news. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. If you go to my website, there's the links there. But
everything is at the website. I love it. I tell you, I just want to say thank you again for taking the time out. As you mentioned, you have a very tight schedule during the week. You're up middle of the night for the morning anchor. So I really appreciate you, and I wish you nothing but absolute success in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Absolutely. And guys, again, my guest has been Miss Kimberly Holmes Wiggins. She is the founder of Still His. You can definitely go to her website, connect with her, and be a part of that. I'm sure if you are not part of that, you know someone who is. So thank you so much. And guys, this has been the Grind Entrepreneur Network. And this is where we shine those entrepreneurs on their grind. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.